Inspired by sound.
Everyone, hello. How's it going? First of all, because it's better to do it earlier than late and forget about it, I'd like to say a thank you to 3 new patrons this time round. So Roy Rios, CC, and Jake Holt, thank you very much. So today's topic, I've been delving into FM8 lately, and I thought I would show you a Rhodes that I have as a result of that, and some of the modifications that with my Komplete keyboard I can make to FM8 patches. It's been an interesting time because, you know, I've had FM8 since my introduction to Komplete in May of 2016, but I haven't really sat down and messed with it, and I thought, you know what, it's a great plugin, let me do something. As for the last video ending prematurely, which it did at 30 odd minutes in, I think I've solved that problem. I reinstalled the app on my phone, which I use as a camera, and I changed the video quality slightly, so it's 1080p. I don't know if it was 4K before, but it was something that shouldn't have been, and the phone was getting very hot and thinking I wanted to end the video, so it just would end it. Now, if this video doesn't run that long, which hopefully it won't, and if it doesn't back out and die on me, then that's good, I've solved it. If it does, then I still haven't, and I don't know what I'm going to do about it. So let's just see what happens and go from there. Alright, let's talk FM8 and Rhodes in particular. So the first track, I have 2 tracks with me today, and this is like the old Inspired by Sound. We're not breaking down tracks or anything, although the card that's showing, or maybe has just gone off the screen, is the track that you just heard called FM8 Mate, using just FM8 and just Native Instruments effects, because it was something fun to make over the weekend, and I was sort of feeling inspired, so I did what I did. So here's a Rhodes from a DX7 pack of sounds for FM, I guess FM7 originally. That's the dry version of the Rhodes. I haven't modified this in any way, shape or form. Hold on, I'm just checking levels, making sure that everything is set the way that it should be set. Alright, it is. Okay, good. So here is just a standard Rhodes. That's the FM8 Rhodes. And then underneath is my version of it, which is modified now. So what have I done to this, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. At least I can tell you what I've done to the effects, because the actual sound I don't think I've modified at all. Or if I have, I just turned the stereo a bit. But we can find out together. So, in slot 2 I have an effect called Choral, which comes from, I believe, the Native Instruments mod pack effects, which also ships with Facis, or Facis, and I think one other. And I can't remember what that might be. And in slot 3, I have Space Master 2, which is a reactor-based effect, which is a lot of fun, which is the reverb. So slot 2 is this chorus. If I change it to something else, you will notice what it does. So it's that's a clippy sound. There's a chorus ahead of that and a chorus ahead of that. So I picked something nice and middly, and I haven't modified the chorus at all. I have modified the reverb though. It's called Roadie, this chorus, and it is exactly what it says. It's fit for Rhodes, and I like it. Eight notes, so you've got to be careful how you play this. If you play anything huge with massive chords, let's do it. That says what happens. So, when you're playing these things, you have to be mindful of the fact. I love this sound. I could play this, and I have for hours. And in slot 3, Spacemaster 2, I have an effect called Church Front. Now I turned and I changed the size of this, so to achieve this sound, I had to do a few different things. So let's talk about what you can do with just the main sound, really, and I'll do it on the dry, because I wanna show you where you might take this yourself and make it, and maybe we'll make something new right here, so you can, you know, see what we can do. So, of course, in slot 1 is FM8, the patch, and the first thing on page 1, if you're using Komplete as I am, is brightness. Now, some of you may not have messed with FM8 before, but if you have, bear with me, okay? We're just going to sort of design this thing and see what we can achieve it, make it do. So brightness is, by turning it down, you'd sort of have a somewhere with a decay. Okay, fair enough. So you've got to get that brightness up to somewhere Rhodesy. And if you go beyond that, and you hit it hard, then that's what happens. So we have 16 pages of parameters, often 8 knobs, all 8 knobs. So it's 128 parameters there, which is quite a lot of parameters, really. Although, you know, there's a fair bit missing even so. But that's a good amount of parameters that you can mess with. Not going to go through all of them because it would take weeks. However, just the first knob itself is already making such a drastic change. I'm going to go down an octave and I'm going to hit these keys hard and I'm going to turn up the brightness as I do so. Listen to what happens. So, of course, ideally you want a happy medium, unless you want to go for like a sort of old DOS game kind of sound. But as we're talking about Rhodes, oh, it's all right. We're going to be messing it up even more than that by the time this is done. But let's set the brightness to somewhere normal, or actually, it's just easier to reset the sound to default by reloading it. So, second control, the harmonic control. This is fun. I'm going to turn this all the way to the left, and all the way to the left is almost like the original sound. In fact, it might well be. Let me just reload it again to be sure. It's hard to tell. Let me turn it very slowly to the left. Oh no, there's a few differences. There's a couple of sort of upper harmonics there that you can... So yes, the harmonic changes sort of... I mean, obviously it changes the harmonic, but to explain it in a term that I even can understand, I don't really know exactly what's going on here. But if I do that, you'll hear it, the differences. And it's very fine. I have to turn it incredibly slowly before I completely kill the thing. Do you hear what's happening there? So from the beginning to the end, if I just play like one chord and then turn it, it goes through all these jumpy stages. It's fascinating to me why it does that. So you can customize your Rhodes even with the very first 2 knobs on page 1, and it's already vastly different than it was when we did it. So here, it's hugely different already. Now, how can we make it like it was in the beginning, like that? So harmonic to the left a bit. But of course the nice thing is if you really do mess it up, you just have to reload the patch from the browser. Alright, so let's set it to somewhere unusual, because let's get it as far away from as we can, just to show you why or what kind of things you can achieve by doing so. Right, so now if I was to go to page a few pages ahead, which I'm skipping the gun, jumping the gun a bit, but if I were to do that and turn down the decay and the sustain, well, sustain, I think, then we would have a sort of organy type sound, because you see why? Just because of the nature of how this is now set. If we turn the brightness up, then it's not. And so just slight changes really completely alter this thing to weird levels. What's that? It's very weird. So it's reset. The next is a detune knob, which does that. So in a way, I think there are two oscillators working here in tandem, and so with a slight detune, you get a slight chorus effect. This will become more obvious when I get to the stereo knob later on. So if I set that to about here, it's just kind of yoing, yoy, yoy, yoy against itself because of the way the detune rate is. And so that is what happens there. Then the next is an envelope amount. When all the way to the right does that, and all the way to the left does that. So it's very electronic Rhodes sounding right now, like it was badly sampled. Of course, FM8 isn't sampling. I've heard some PSR Rhodes and Yamaha keyboards that sound a bit like this, and since Yamaha made the technology, that's no surprise, I suppose. So, yes, envelope amount. All the way to the right, then it's also just as weird, but in a different direction. There's no oomph to that. It's very weird. So, again, you want a happy medium? Somewhere there. No, not yet. Here? I think I broke or knocked something. I think I knocked the harmonic. Because the harmonic is so very steppy, if you can see, I'm turning this harmonic knob just most minuscule amounts. So, for those who cannot, let's say between 12 and 3, this is how many steps you can hear. All that. So that's about 3 o'clock. It's about 12 o'clock. So there's just a whole heap of steps. So if you want to set this thing on something and it is not quite where you want it, you have to be very fine with that. And then if you want to be sure not to knock it, save as you go along. So make a couple changes and be in a position that you can keep hitting save on in whatever system that you're in, DAW or whatever it is you're working, because trust me, it's going to go away. And if you're messing with a knob that's next to it, like the detune knob or the E&V amount knob, and you knock your harmonic knob, and you've just spent ages getting it set in the position you want it, if you sneeze at it or look at it funny, it's going to change on you. So it's important to get it just so. Otherwise, too bad. So let's reload that sound. So again, the envelope amount. So with a fresh reload, that's what that's like. Now if I start changing this, let's go to the left first and go to the right. So there's like a happy medium about there. And there's my happy medium. Okay. Now, not all controls are going to do something, and if I come across something that doesn't make myself look a fool because I don't know that it's not going to, please forgive me. So, in the case of timbre velocity, it's, I guess, how hard I hit that and how the timbre responds to the velocity. So all the way to the left, nothing's happening really when I hit it soft and turn it all the way to the right. Now when I play soft and hard, actually it's making some dynamic changes. So now I'm playing the very softest I can, literally the very softest I can, and then the hardest I can with timbre vel all the way to the left and all the way to the right. So it's having obviously an effect there. Now I don't know where it's set by default, so again we'll just reload. Right, timbre attack is the next one. And that obviously has a very obvious effect. So it brings in the sound quite slowly, but not all of it, just the timbre of it, or timbre. That's quite an interesting sound in and of itself, just by the nature of the fact that it is so different from where we started, and it's just, again, one knob. So FM is interesting because it drastically changes what you do in such unusual ways. I really like it. I wish I'd spent more time with this before and made new sounds and messed with this stuff, but I hadn't. But never mind, now I've discovered it, because I've been under a rock all these years. Well, there's always time for learning, isn't there? That's okay. So, I mean, imagine if you were to put a delay under that, or some kind of gritty effect or something, you'd have a completely different sound from where you started just by turning one knob. And we already know from prior experience that the brightness knob and the harmonic knob acts in exactly the same way. You turn one of those and the sound is drastically different. Just these two things. It's incredible. It really is. So by turning the brightness all the way down, the sound is basically just a sign that we started with before I even messed with the timbre attack. But if I turn the brightness all the way up, then we have this effect. And when I play very hard, that happens. Now, my curiosity, because I haven't done this, is if I turn the timbre velocity all the way down and play hard or soft, does it really matter? And yes, it sort of does. But I've turned the timbre velocity all the way up, and the attack all the way up, and the brightness all the way up, and playing very soft. And there's very, very slight changes. But if I play hard now, then that happens. It swells, and it also white noises out, almost. Fascinating. Really fascinating stuff. I love this. I like the learning, and I hope you guys are getting something out of this as well. So yeah, timbre decay next. I've reset the sound. And timbre decay, again, an immediate sound difference. Let's turn the decay all the way up. And start turning it slightly down. You can see how quickly it dies. Now, the only thing about using the knobs in this way is that I don't know what the values were set to before I messed with them. So if I could tell you that, the speech doesn't read them out to me. So I can't tell you where things were for the person who made this sound to have made it. I just like messing with it. And then timbre sustain. So if I turn the decay all the way up and sustain all the way down, that's what happens. And we go the other way, then it's kind of offsetting. So now deck is down, sus is up, deck sustain, and if I switch them around, decay all the way up, sustain all the way down, it's quite similar. So they kind of balance each other out in a way. Fascinating stuff. And that's the end of page 1. We've only covered one page of this stuff. One page. I don't know how long this is going to be, and I'm kind of worried about making long videos now since my phone has been so crapping out on me. So I will say, as I've said before, that if it ends prematurely, I will still post it, and I will thank you for watching. But I do want to do some more things, so I'm going to carry on and hope it doesn't. But if it does, you know it's not because I don't love you all. All right? So there we go. Might be time to buy a new camera. Timbre release is on page 2. So when I turn that down and I play the keys very quickly, that happens. If I turn the release all the way up, that happens. And then reset the sound because I don't. The release is almost all the way down, listening to the sound, but not all the way down. You can tell there's a bit of release on that. If I turn it all the way down, now it is. I would say they had it about there. Do you concur with my findings, my wonderful viewers? LFO rate. Now, does this affect anything at this time? I think it doesn't. I think we can... Oh, the vibrate, yes. The vibrate certainly does, and therefore the rate will too. So with vibrate all the way up, and the rate all the way up, turn the vibrate down slowly. That is what happens. Oh, freaky. So imagine if we went back to page 1 and we turned the timbre attack all the way up and set the brightness to maximum and maybe change the harmonic a bit and then had this vibration all the way up and the rate all the way down, you would have a very bizarre sound, all from what was once a Rhodes, and now it is not. Well, it is still quite now, but if you made those changes, it wouldn't be based on what we already know from prior exploration. So it's fascinating things. Okay, let's turn the vibrate all the way off for the moment. Okay, so the timbre, LFO timbre or timbre actually, is having an effect on how the sound is. I think by default it's all the way to the left, but if I'm turning it slightly to the right, then that happens. The next one is LFO tremolo, and that's definitely having an effect. Turned it all the way off for now. And then there's the master volume for the entire sound. And then there's a stereo. And by turning the stereo up, we have a stereo spread of this sound. I'm going to turn the volume slightly down because it's loud. There we go. Playing softly, playing hard, and what I can tell, or what I feel like, is that the sine wave is on the left only. Because I play the very softest I can, then that happens. And when I play hard, then there's other sound kicks in as well, so the sine wave seems to be underpinning the whole sound. Interesting stuff. You wouldn't be able to tell if it was still in mono, completely mono, so I think I must have on my sound underneath this one. Must have adjusted the stereo slightly, or possibly, maybe the choral effect is doing that for me. So yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, and then the last is the output velocity on this. I've turned that all the way down. Let's turn it all the way up. Now, when I play very soft, it really does go away, and it's very dynamic now. So all the way down, even when I play at my absolute softest, that's what happens. I'm barely pressing these keys. It's still triggering, quite harsh. Well, not harsh really, no. It's the sine doing it. That's so cool. Alright, I'm going to reset this sound, and I'm going to go to page 2, and I'm going to set the stereo to maximum for effect's sake, and then I'm going to turn this volume up slightly. Right. So now, the way that it seems to be set is that when I play very softly, the sine wave is the only thing triggering on the left-hand channel. When I play, the Rhodes kicks in. And the reason it's so panned out is because I've set the stereo to extremes. And the reason I've done that is because I'm going to skip back to page 1, and I want to show you something. I'm going to now mess with the harmonic, because now you will hear what happens. You start to get different sounds on different channels. I'm turning this thing as slow as I can manage, a bit like a double-decker bus through London traffic, because each turn you can really start to hear what's happening to this sound. And I'm going to play some chords. Let's see. adverse, well, sorry, a dynamic effect. Why did I say adverse? Well, it could be adverse, depends how you look at it. But it's definitely doing some crazy stuff there. So yeah, there are some very noticeable things happening. So now if I play a one chord and then spin the dial back, it's passing through all these noises. So at the bottom end of the harmonic spectrum, the Rhodes can't get very bright at all. And then here, oh no, I turned it one too far. There we go. It's more Rhodesy. Well, electronic Rhodesy, because the stereo spread is too vast. Let's turn the stereo spread down. All the way down is this. And slightly up is that. And then slightly more is that. And then all the way up again